بالله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله الحكيم في الذكر الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His holy book, Quran, orders all Muslims to safeguard against evil and follow those who are righteous, pious, and truthful. Tonight, we are going to learn some lessons from the gracious life of our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam. Our ninth Imam was born in Medina, 10th of Rajab, in 195 year after Hijrah. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was martyred by an Abbasid tyrant known as Mu'tasim al-Abbasi in Baghdad in 220. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam's holy shrine is in Qadimain, Iraq. And if you look at the lives of our Imams, none of them died natural death. All of them, this is a very, very sad point of Islamic history. All of them who were beacons of Islamic knowledge and center of humanitarian values, all of them, without any exception, they were killed. That's why their ages, if you look, they are very little. 55 years, 57 years, 60. The highest age is 65. Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. And our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam, he lived in this world just 25 years. So youngest Imam. And his name is Muhammad, as Prophet Muhammad's name. And his titles are At-Taqi. At-Taqi means the one who always remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the second most famous title of this Imam is Al-Jawad, the generous. And Imam alayhi salatu wasalam was generous. Of course he was generous, and his generosity is famous. One time it happened that a group of pilgrims were going from different parts of Islamic state to perform Hajj. On their way, they were robbed. When they arrived there, they had nothing. But when Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam learned their plight situation, Imam alayhi salatu wasalam provided them with everything, and whatever they had lost, they were provided by our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad Taqi. And Imam والسلام, used to pray. Sometimes he prayed for hours, just one single prayer. Allahumma qini shuhha nafsi. Oh Allah, save me against the stinginess of heart. This is very important point. Save me against the stinginess of heart. If you look at today's problem, in one part you'll see the resources of this world are being misused, extravagantly used, wasted. On the other part, on the other side, people are starving. Just actually, if you do yourself a research about the current situation of the world, in so-called developed countries, in just a few of them, the amount of food which is wasted, if it is saved, then in this world no person would starve. This is statistics. So Imam ﷺ used to pray this prayer, and by praying hours and hours this prayer, he wanted to share this message to the world. Allahumma qini shuhha nafsi. Oh Allah, save me against the stinginess of heart. And tonight I'd like to share another important point from the life of our ninth Imam. You know, the Islamic capital punishments always under question. And unfortunately, Muslims themselves, they don't understand the philosophy of Islamic capital punishments or the conditions of Islamic capital punishments. And due to their diversion from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, just after the sad demise of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, since those people who assumed the post of the position of rulership of Muslim world, they were just rulers. They had no love and affection for mankind. What they loved was expansion of their territories, no more than that. So those people actually manipulated Islam and violated the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm mentioning just one point from Islamic capital punishment. You know, the punishment of thief, it is usually said, and unfortunately from media, usually made as an uproar and a mean of huge propaganda against Islam. That Islam says if someone commits theft, steals something, just chop off his hand. It's brutal. It's harsh. Of course, if you explain in this way, it is brutal, it is harsh. But if you go in detail and look it from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam's perspective, it's not harsh, it's not brutal. During the time of Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam, a person committed theft and he was convicted. So Mu'tasim, the king of that time, Abbasid tyrant, he wanted to give him the punishment. So he consulted with the scholars present in the court. Now some scholars came up with this idea that his hand should be chopped from the arm. Some said no, it should be chopped from the shoulder. Some said it should be chopped off from the wrist. There were different opinions. So the king got confused. He was not satisfied because no one had any substantial argument to back their opinion. So at the end, he called Imam Muhammad Taqi alayhi salatu wasalam and discussed this issue with Imam Muhammad Taqi. Imam told them, look, if you insist that I say something in this regard, that according to Quran, if he is convicted, if it is proven that he has committed the theft with all the conditions, it's not as simple as people say from media, from TV and from other public domains. There are 19 conditions and all must be available before implementing the Islamic jurisprudential system in this area. 19 conditions. You never hear to those conditions because these people who actually they talk about these capital punishment, they are not sincere. They just want to have found a mean against Islam, against propaganda about Islam. So they never go in detail. However, in our fiqh, in jurisprudence, from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam's perspective, there are 19 conditions. First, all those conditions must be available. And some of the conditions are, for example, the person who's committed theft, he should not have committed it out of need. If he was needy and committed theft or robbery, he is exempt. And for example, the amount, if he has just stolen something from someone's house, committed ordinary burglary, he will not be punished. Huge amount, like bank robbery and things like that. And he committed robbery while he was fully satisfied with his life. There was no famine, no any other natural disaster. And there are many more conditions, 19 conditions. All must be available before going ahead. So Imam alayhi salatu wasalam told them, first of all, you need to decide whether all the conditions are available, and actually getting all the conditions available is extremely difficult. People always talk about this issue, but when we look at Islamic history, during the life of Prophet Muhammad, we don't find any example. Because the conditions are so tough, it's extremely difficult to get all those conditions available. And during the time of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, we have only one example. During the reign of Imam Ali alayhi salam, a person committed robbery and he was convicted and all the conditions were available. So Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam implemented the Islamic Sharia in this regard. And he chopped his 4 fingers, only 4 fingers, not his hand, from the wrist or from the arm or from the shoulder. Even after that, what happened is very interesting. When Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam chopped off his fingers, history says some people afterwards came to Imam Ali and they reported that the person who you've actually punished because of robbery or theft is still praising you. Khawarij, your enemies, they are taunting him, but he is still praising you. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam told them, hold on, go and get that person. That person was brought in the presence of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam Ali took all those four fingers and joined them with his hand, and then put a cloth on his hand and then recited something. And after that, when the cloth was removed, his hand was as normal. So some enemies of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, they said, Ya Ali, what's that? You implemented the Islamic punishment, then you actually repaired it. What's that? You don't understand. Imam Ali said, the punishment was punishment for his sin that he had committed, and whatever I did afterwards, I joined his hands, it was the reward of his love of me. And when we read Islamic history from the very beginning until 300 or 400 years of Islamic era, we find in history only 3 or 4 examples, when Islamic capital punishment about a thief was implemented, because the conditions are very, very tough. So this is Islamic capital punishment. So Imam Ali salatu wasalam told them, first of all, you need to make sure that all the conditions are available. Number 2, all these ulama, all these scholars, unfortunately, are wrong. His hand should not be chopped from wrist, from arm, or from shoulder. Only 4 fingers should be chopped off. All of them looked at Imam Muhammad Taqi salatu wasalam very strangely. What's the argument? Imam Ali salatu wasalam recited a verse from Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. Masajid, the places of sajda, belong entirely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this hand, this palm, is one of the places of sajda. If you cut someone's hand, actually you are depriving him from performing correct sajda. And since this part of his hand belongs entirely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whatever belongs to Allah, no one can take except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad balantar
So Islam has always actually measured all these facts, all these issues. Forget about human being. From Islamic perspective, animals are so important that no one is allowed even to hurt an animal. Forget about human being. Imam Ali alayhi salatu, just read a sermon of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Not sermon, a letter of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam in Nahju Balagha, which is the instruction of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam about animals given to those people who were dispatched by him to collect zakat on behalf of him from different parts of Islamic state. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, just read that. You'll enjoy it. No one in this world has explained the rights of animals in that sublime way. You just read it, I'm not mentioning it. It is in Nahju Balagha. If you look at the life of Prophet Muhammad, according to history, he was ready to perform wuzu. And you know, the water at that time in Arabia was very scarce. All of a sudden he noticed a cat, and he realized that the cat was thirsty. He gave the water to the cat, and he waited until the water was available so he could perform wuzu and perform namaz, perform salah. So he delayed his prayer just for a cat. This is Islam. And this is Islamic ruling according to Quran, Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad and Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, that if a cat, dog or even pig, which is not allowed to eat according to Islam, if a pig is dying out of thirst and you've got water, and that water can serve only one purpose, either your ablution or the thirst of that pig, what would you do? Islam says, if you perform wuzu, neither your wuzu is correct nor your namaz is going to be accepted. You must give the water to that dying pig and save its life. So this is Islam. And forget about even animals, plants. Prophet Muhammad used to say, and Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam have instructed us in many sentences, Man saqa talhatan faka'annama saqa mu'minan. If you water a plant as if you watered a believing man or woman, you'll get the same reward. So this is Islam. You are not allowed, no one is allowed to cut down any green tree or plant without any logical purpose. Forget about cutting down a tree, cutting down a plant. You are not allowed even to pick up a leaf from a tree without any legitimate and logical purpose. Because of what? Look at this beautiful verse of Quran. This is actually the holistic and inclusive approach of Quran for human being. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. You think that only you glorify Allah. You think that only you praise Allah. Everything of this universe is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you pick up a leaf from its tree, you separate it without any logical purpose, you are not picking up a leaf, you are actually silencing a glorifying tongue to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why Islam does not allow it. About cloth, cleanliness, tidiness, Islam says, whenever your clothes gets najis, clean it, wash it immediately. Don't keep it for ages. Why? Inna thawb idha tanajjasa inqata'a tasbihuhu. Everything is praising Allah. When a cloth gets najis, its praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stops. So if you are keeping it for 1 week, for 2 weeks, you are depriving it from glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is an immaculate instruction to actually promote cleanliness and tidiness. And from here I request all children, all my younger brothers specifically, to look after the place you live in, and to look after the place you visit, your schools, your colleges, your universities, streets. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam says, it is in Nahjul Balagha, most authentic book. Innakum mas'ulun hatta anil biqa wal bahaim. You think you are going to be asked only about your prayers, about your fasts? But Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam says, إِنَّكُمْ مَسْئُولُونَ حَتَّى عَنِ الْبِقَاءِ وَالْبَهَائِمِ. You are going to be questioned before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even about the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even about the animals and birds. So what is the right of land? Keep it tidy and clean. And specifically the center where we are commemorating Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam. I would like to request all my sisters and all my brothers, please keep your center tidy, clean. This is the right of this building. If you are not keeping it tidy and clean and messing it around and leaving the garbage and litters around the center, you are violating its right, and it would complain on the day of judgment. You would face a trouble. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says us, oh, you who believe, safeguard against evil and join the group of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam. And all these instructions and teachings we get from Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam. That's why we love Ahlul Bayt. That's why we act upon the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. That's why we aspire to fulfill the desires of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salam. By Muhammad wa ali Muhammad sallallahu.
कर रहे हैं ये दुआ ज़ेरे अलम सरवर हिलाल ऐ खुदा ये गम बफ़ैज़े पंजतन जिंदा रहे।